Boucher is running 15 minutes late, which is precisely on time. So we figured we'd just get the ball rolling here. I'm John Shaban. I'm a state representative for the lower half of Reading, all of Easton, all of Weston.
Dan Carter, I'm the state representative for the northern half of Reading, also Bethel, Danbury, and Newtown.
So, the goal tonight is obviously just to have an open discussion. What we've done is print it up rather than actually do the actual PowerPoint. We've actually printed up a PowerPoint, which I hope everybody has. And, and frankly, it's kind of up to the will of the group, I think. The PowerPoint is divided into two basic sections, the two pressing things that are anyone's focusing on at this point in the state. One, the budget. B, what's going on at the Newtown Commission with school safety, gun control, and mental health. So, with that, I think it makes a little bit of sense for us to kind of go through, the nice pretty pictures, the graphs and colorful lines, because, we could, long story short, we're facing another multi-billion-dollar deficit. Long story short, our spending, the proposed spending budget, and when you read this, it makes it sound like the budget's already in stone. We haven't gotten to the budget yet. Until we get the Newtown stuff behind us, we haven't gotten to the budget yet. So that's going to be business in hand probably starting next week. But the proposed budget for this year is written in this document. It's the governor's proposed budget. So let's sort of meander through it. I'll take a page, Dan will take a page, and then we'll get down to where we're at. First pretty picture on the first page. Graphic depiction of where state spending stands in connection with population growth and inflation. I think it's a telling story. I think there's some reasons for that. Some people may say that's a good thing. Some people say it's a bad thing. I believe it's a bad thing. I'm not saying they have to be locked in lockstep, but when spending is at 318% over the last 20-some-odd years, and population growth is at 9%, that's how you run yourself into multi-billion-dollar deficits. The next two pages are nice pie charts that do a nice job talking about where does the money come from and where does the money go. Obviously, most of the money comes from taxes. That's the way government's run. That's not a surprise. About 17% of our budget comes from federal money, whether it's Medicare, Medicaid, social programs, whatnot. But most of it obviously comes from taxes. And on the way out, the money on the way out, at the top of page 3, self-explanatory. Education and social services are the biggest portion, with the debt payment, debt service at about 11%, which is a problematic number, taking up about a third position. I think, and when you want to, cut me off.
Okay, I'll cut you off.
Perfect.
The problem with the budget, there's a number of things you're going to start hearing about. Obviously, the news has been taken up with all the other things happening in the state right now, which we will get to that. I know some folks want to talk about that right away. But the budget is really important because, this state is, again, teetering on fiscal bankruptcy. I mean, we're in trouble, folks. There's no question about it. But some of the things that you're going to hear about that I think are very concerning is, number one, the amount of borrowing. For instance, we were going to go to GAAP accounting principles, but we borrowed money to do that, about $750 million. We're talking about a constitutional spending cap. Well, we're about $1 billion over it, but what we're doing is we're changing the rules so that makes us comply with the constitutional spending cap. So there's a lot of funny things going on, and there are two things that I'm particularly concerned with that I want everybody to know about. One is hospitals in the state of Connecticut. I don't know if you remember in the news back when we did the deficit mitigation at the end of last year. We were looking for ways to make this budget whole because we ran out of money, basically. And one of the things they did is they went after money that was given to hospitals, what they call the disproportionate share money. Now what those dollars are dollars that basically are reimbursing them for care that they never got reimbursed for in the first place. And they're only getting, right now they're getting about 60 cents on the dollar back or somewhere in that neighborhood. And what happened was years ago, we switched the system. They were getting about 30 cents on the dollar back, and we switched to it under Saga. And we switched the system over to now they get about, I think it's 69 cents on the dollar back. Now what happened, of course it's still a loss for our hospitals, right? So what did we do in our infinite wisdom? We went in and we took that money from the last quarter of last year to pay our bills. In this budget, we're going back and taking that money again for our hospitals, which is going to mean layoffs, issues with care. What it really means for us is programs. You know, in this area, if you want Western Connecticut Health System to have a specific program, that's something that's important to you. Well, guess what? Now it's harder for them to have all these extra programs. At the same time, we're giving another 1.5 billion to UConn. So those are real issues that we have to start thinking about. Go ahead, Jerry, you have a question?
Excuse me for interrupting. I had lunch today with an executive I worked with who was CEO of some Fortune 500 companies, and he's very involved in the hospital network in Western Connecticut. And the numbers that he told me are astounding.
Mm-hmm.
Danbury could lose upwards of $40 million in funding. The Norwalk Hospital, $25 million. Yale New Haven, $125 million. And they're doing exactly what you're saying. They're looking at services that are high-cost services without a lot to recoup, and we're talking about psychological care, geriatrics, those kinds of things that are costly, and they have to be farmed out, I guess, if you lose that kind of funding.
Well, the problem is, I think in the certain aspects of the legislature, the governor's office, when they switched that program from Saga to what we do now, and frankly, I don't even know what they call it now, to be honest. They looked at that as a windfall. Like somehow they're getting reimbursed at 30 cents on the dollar, now they're getting 69 cents on the dollar. Well, somehow they're making all this money. And I think that's really a mischaracterization of what's going on. And in our area, Danbury Hospital at the end of last year, with this deficit mitigation, they lost $4.2 million alone, Danbury Hospital. And that was after we fought for some money back. You know, I think $800,000 was taken out of Milford, and probably another $4 million out of Norwalk. And I put those together because that's Western Connecticut system, which is what affects our communities the most. And that's just a real challenge, and that's something you're gonna hear about the news, and I hope as you learn more about it, you'll stand up, you'll write us letters, let us know that we'll stand. And the other thing I wanted, the other concern I have that I think you guys really wanna know about, well, obviously is the property tax car issue. That's something that everybody's talking about right now. You know, it's interesting, I don't think it's gonna fly, I really don't. But there are a lot of people out there who've done these calculations and they say, well, if we get rid of the property tax on those the vehicles, that in some cases, people will actually make more money, which I don't know where that's coming from. Because the bottom line is, if that helps the people who are renters in the community, like not pay as much, their rents are gonna go up. And those of you who have, a couple of vehicles, it's not gonna help you that much because your property taxes are gonna go up. It's kind of a little bit of a shell game. So that's something else you want to do.
I think what Dan's calling is right, it is a shell game, it's a distraction, frankly, because the state, the state can allow the town to tax certain things and not, because that's kind of the way our structure works in the state of Connecticut. So by telling the towns you can no longer tax for vehicles, that's not, nothing inures to the state. It's sort of a look over here, we're giving you a car tax benefit, while don't look over here while your hospitals are getting gutted. I mean, it really is a shell game, just like Dan said. I don't think it's gonna stand out. I think all the, I don't know how many first elected and mayors came up to the Finance Committee, Appropriations Committee, and all testified, both sides of the aisle, every side of the aisle you could have, said, don't do this. This is just the wrong way to go. Because it's not gonna, all it's gonna do is hurt the towns. It's not gonna balance any budget. It's not gonna help the state at all. And it's pulling the rug out. I think the town of Reading stands to lose almost $2 million, I think is a rough estimate. And Easton and Weston are about the same. I don't know about Bethel and Danbury. But it's about $2 million out of the budget. That's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, what's our town budget, Julie? What's that, 10% almost? I mean, it's,
About $13.5 million?
Yeah, I mean, so it's even more. Right. So, yeah, not the education part. And so, I mean, that's a big hit. So I agree with Dan. I think it's probably not gonna stand. Again, what you see here as the budget for this year is the proposed budget, but Dan's point's a good one, especially on the hospitals. We were at a breakfast up at Meadow Ridge a month or so back. Preaching to the choir is good because we're screaming and yelling too, but you'd be surprised how helpful letters to editors, letters to other legislators, letters and emails and phone calls actually make a difference. They actually make a difference. Call the governor. Say, no, bad idea. Find it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Call Dan.
I also want to take a second and recognize, I don't know if you guys knew, Julie Pemberton came in the room, one of our selectmen in Reading, so please, hello, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
It's, the other thing that I kind of want to throw out, just be thinking about and watching for is, You're gonna hear a lot of criticism of the budget because we are backing out of some deals that we made in the last budget. For instance, with respect to electricity, there was a generation tax put on Dominion. It's about $80 million. And part of that deal was, hey guys, don't squabble too much about it, and we'll make sure this thing sunsets at the end of this 2-year budget. Well, guess what? Thanks for playing. It's not sunsetting. So I look at that, and those kinds